Oh hey guys, it's Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, the Esports World Cup groups have finally been revealed. Which teams have the group of death? And OpTic's group, they will play G2, the Minnesota Rocket, as they were during the regular season. The battle with Kenny they had to even qualify for the World Championship not all that long ago. Kenny was on OpTic, as we'll not forget, earlier on this season. What does that mean for the way this tournament could play out? How easy are these groups going to be? And also some early reaction to some of the practice the teams have got in with the new coaching change. Clayster certainly gives his opinion on that. Very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Let's get back into this. Yesterday we talked about the big update really for the World Cup, and the fact of the matter is these teams were not informed until very recently indeed. JP says they found out with the rest of us that the coaches were going to be allowed to communicate with the team in real time, and that's really given the players and the teams a matter of days, because the players are going to be flying out there in literally the next couple of days. I'm sure that after what happened last year, when, I mean, the tournament starts this upcoming Thursday, but it's a 20-hour flight for a lot of the guys. It's going to be 16, 20 hours. You're also traveling forward in time at least 8 hours. I think probably from Texas, it's 9 hours ahead, Saudi Arabia, than Texas, than Central American time. So that's like a whole nother kind of half a day on top of it. So if you're leaving Tuesday, good luck with that. And Wednesday is a big media day, right? You guys remember last year they did that funny skit where Dashy and TJ Halley were doing all this. It was like the American Psycho thing, right? You guys probably remember that one. So that's the Wednesday. And last year the players were like, unbelievably jet lagged, and I know that a lot of the players who are going to the World Cup for the first time, let's say in the Valorant side as well, because I think for Valorant it was their first year this year at the World Cup, they didn't have it there last year. They recognise, like, damn, that was, like, a lot, and the teams have recognised that to prepare for it, they will probably have to either take things a little bit earlier. I don't know when the players are flying, but I'd imagine that after what happened last year, where a lot of the players were on life support, they have decided to probably make things a little easier, which means that there's even less time to practice to prepare. Like, realistically, they have, like, maybe 3 days of scrims with this coaching change that they knew about. So that's a pretty big deal in the first place, because some teams, I'm sure, will take a very different approach to other teams about this. If you guys aren't familiar, yesterday we confirmed that Hardpoint and Control, the coaches will be able to talk to the team in real time whenever they like. In Search, it's between Search and Destroy rounds, but definitely still applies. Now, JP talks about this, because initially he was like, well, this is a surprising change for sure. It's maybe not going to be too invasive, but I definitely do see the coach's perspective on the skill gap here. As JP says, we're already lowering the skill gap year by year via gun skill and mechanics within the game. Why lower it even more with comms and IQ? If we want to shift part of the skill gap from the players to the coaches, then so be it. But it feels like an absolute crutch to happen. And, JP goes on to say a couple of other things. Just to be clear, I do think in between rounds or within timeouts for Search and Control is a good medium. So, I don't disagree with that. I think it's an interesting idea. Maybe not in between every round or have some sort of timeout. It's like it is in Valorant or Counter-Strike or something. The coach can't just talk to the player the whole time, but if they can, they can put a timeout, then they decide, all right, here's the strat book. Is COD really that complicated to require that? Should the players have to adjust on the fly? Does it give more credence to a strong in-game leader who can make those decisions on the fly? Yeah, so it's very interesting. JP doesn't really like it for hardpoint or respawn modes that have no intermission. And, obviously there's a debate on the fact that all coaches are not created equal, but maybe that skill gap should still be part of the players' responsibility, as JP says, to shift that away from the players to the coaches. Does the community want this? In my opinion, the best part about respawn CODs is the decision making and awareness needed by the players. So it's an interesting take, right? I don't know what OpTic are going to do. I think that some coaches are probably going to find that they end up being more invasive than other coaches. We'll see what Clay here said in a second, but I think most coaches might well follow Clay's approach to say, okay, look, I'm not going to say too much, because if I make a mistake, then I feel terrible. And it also does show that there is a skill gap there as well. Like, if you've got a coach who's calling the shots on the fly, seeing all the screens, and can make the correct decision 99% of the time, whereas, some other coach only makes the correct decision 80% of the time, then, yeah, that's obviously an advantage for you. And it means that teams would honestly have to consider who their coach is going to be. And like the great coaches who have that mind for the game would become even more valuable. So that's one argument. But equally, should that skill gap exist with the players? That's kind of what JP is suggesting here. But Clay says pretty much what he's been doing is just saying, all right, guys, we've killed 3 of them, we're looking for Cellium, or we're looking for Pred, or whatever. Like, okay, not Pred, Pred's on his team, but you know what I'm saying, right? So just simply calling out and taking one aspect of the thinking and the thought process out of the player's hands, or literally just to say something as simple as, okay, 20 seconds left, it's up, you know, it's money hill, like, let's rotate or whatever, right? So, and it's things like that that maybe the players should have to do themselves, but it's, as JP says, it's kind of shifting where the skill gap lies. And I think some coaches will, depending on their players and what their players want, and maybe the time they've had to prepare this, will either be not very invasive at all and just say a few things. I think that's probably what most coaches will do in Respawn. Some may decide to be more aggressive with it. As we said yesterday, if you wanted to, you could literally tell one of your players, look, don't call out much, only call out, you know, what you're thinking of doing. I will literally call out everything you see for the rest of the team and everything you do. And therefore they could just fully focus on playing. You know, that's also something that's possible, but it's something that with 3 days of practice, the teams can't really get right, I guess. But I don't know, it's pretty fascinating. I think the community's quite split on this. When we talked about it yesterday, the comment section was definitely interesting. Lots of you guys saying, look, I'm down to see it because it's been 11 years since we've had this in COD. I think many of us are intrigued to see what happens. Whether it's really a good thing or should stay as a staple, I'm still far from convinced about that. It's been, you know, my opinion is generally aligned with what these guys are pretty much saying here for the last few years, but I'm not going to lie and say it's not kind of exciting to see it back in theory. So I also wonder, like, what Rambo is going to do in this case, just because if I had to rank, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but if I was to rank all of the COD players ever in terms of IQ points, like, we know that maybe the COD pros aren't the smartest on average, but Rambo has got to be right up there. And I think that as a coach, he probably becomes even more, maybe far more valuable with this potentially in play. And I'd really be fascinated to hear Rambo's perspective on kind of how he feels about this, what he's going to do with that Surge team, because maybe it could be something that helps them get over the line. But obviously we'll see what happens. This is what Clay has to say, then we'll talk about the groups.
Spawns constantly. Dude, they're spawning back.
Nah, bro, you're sitting
like
behind
too
them.
much?
Nah, you're sitting, dude. I did it today. Bro, I ran my Astros behind him. I'm standing behind him. Like, dude, you're trying to call spawns, but you, like, okay, so I'm looking all the way to the left, and then I look down the line to see where everybody's at.
That's
and then by the
true.
time I look to the left again, that guy's halfway across the map. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
fuck. Like, dude, like, it's.
You start calling out wrong shit.
Bro,
Oh, my bad.
I called one thing wrong today, and I'm like, oh, I'm not calling ever again.
Because then they blame you after
Yeah,
that.
they blame me, bro. Blake said, what was there? I killed him. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm sorry.
Nah, so wait, so Clay, you're actually like in it in the moment, right? Like, what's it like coaching like the team in the middle of a map?
Weird.
Is it weird?
So
It's got to be
so
weird.
strange, bro. So weird. It's like I don't want to add to the chaos, and like, you know, they've played as like, dude, it's been 11 years since coaches have done that, right? So it's like, bro, I'm not trying to add to the chaos or like make them like, because we only have 3 days of practice with this shit, you know. So it's like we did it today to get used to it, but bro, I like half the time I'm just like, what I noticed, and like maybe I probably shouldn't say this, but bro, I just like count names for them. That's pretty much all I do.
That's what I was just saying.
Like,
That's
so
what
they
I
don't
said.
have to focus on tracking at all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm dead ass. Like, I'm like, oh, it's Merc and Dashy, first 2 up, ARs. Like, I'll say shit like that.
Yeah. That's what I was just telling Asim. Like, I would literally just micromanage things that they don't have to do it, right? And they can just focus on their plays and their decision making, whatever they want.
So the groups have officially been drawn, pretty much what we were expecting. The 5 Fierce team, that's the new roster that's come in with Hixie, with Exceed, and those guys. Team Orchid is Bance, and that team. Team War is, well, it used to be Diamondcon's team, but it's Assault, and those guys over there. And then Project 7 is the Omit Brooklyn team that got replaced, and then the Omit team itself with Vivid, Mac Craze, and Mamba, the team that's expected really to do the best here from the Challengers teams. They are in Group D. But of course, the Challenger teams, they won't be expected to make it out. I think last year we did see, last year, Heretics, if you guys remember, they turned up to the World Cup and were absolutely atrocious. I don't know what they were playing at, but they were just terrible. And they hadn't even had to travel as far as some of the other guys. They just got 3-0'd by everyone, including the amateur teams. But last year, Law Gaming even, the Challengers teams that were pretty good, they still didn't make it out of the groups. So, and it's very, very unlikely that's going to be the case this year either. But there is opportunities at least for some upsets here and to see what some of these players are capable of anyway. But as we know, some of the Challengers players, let's say the likes of aBeZy, they've actually joined Toronto, right? That's where they're going to be. We'll talk about Toronto a little bit later today because there's an interesting story emerging there as well. But these are the groups, and Group A to Group D. 2 teams make it through, 2 teams don't. It's pretty simple. You play a GSL style group. It's win 2 before you lose 2, effectively. And then if you win 2, you get through to the playoffs, single elimination. And if you lose 2, you go straight home. So, OpTic, G2, Cloud9, FaZe. It's a very interesting group, actually, because on paper, you'd say, well, I don't know what you would say on paper. If you look at this group, you say, damn, G2, Cloud9, pretty big teams, should be competitive. And I think it might be competitive, but at the same time, neither of those teams made champs, right? So I think OpTic have to be, obviously they will be the massive favourites from the group, but they should also be looking at the group and saying, yeah, we should be fine here. Because, okay, on paper, I do genuinely think the G2, as in Minnesota Rocker, the team of Kenny, Geo, Estriel, Nero, they felt better than they performed. I don't know if you guys feel like that's fair, but yeah, at the end of the day, G2 and Cloud9, this most recent season, they had plenty of opportunities to actually put points on the board and just never did it. And G2 didn't make a change going into this World Cup. Cloud9 did. They got rid of Capsidal and they brought in Gwyn. Is it going to massively move the needle? Maybe marginally, but I'm not convinced it's going to make them world-beating precisely. But even then, it's like you look at the Cloud9 team and for a large part of this season, they were just so much worse than they should have been on paper, given the roster that they had, that there's always a feeling that maybe they could somehow put together a run. It's only a couple of best of 5s. Who knows what could happen, right? So OpTic, I don't think, can get complacent. There's still plenty of talent in that group, but at the end of the day, they've got to be confident that they're playing 2 teams here. One of them's a Challengers team, and the other 2 teams didn't even qualify for the World Championship. But the OpTic versus Kenny battle is interesting because, as we know, OpTic and Kenny were together when they won the World Championship last year. This year was a bit of a shambles. Kenny then leaves. He decides to come back with the Minnesota Rocker. And yeah, I think it was probably a solid decision. Yeah, they didn't make champs in the end, but Kenny played much better. And I think has probably put his stock in a better position now than it was after he left OpTic anyway. Not as good as it was after winning champs last year, but still not the end of the world. But OpTic versus Kenny is always going to be pretty fascinating. And yeah, these groups are getting confirmed now, but I think within reason, we've known for some time that G2, at least, even with the whole Raven stuff that messed things up, I think it was always going to be G2 in OpTic's group. So, Kenny and Rocker, it's all part of the G2 thing. That's who they're representing here. They will have known that they're playing OpTic for some time. So if they want to prepare, if they want to kind of do what Boston did to Thieves at the World Championship, that is their prerogative to do so. Group B is tough. I mean, it's tough for Gentlemate, right? Like, they've made the change for DiamondCon and Team Orchid as well. Beans, Bants, those guys we'll see in a second. Surge and Thieves in the same group, yeah, that is a challenge. But it's, of course, based on the results that we saw at the World Championship, right? And Thieves got bopped out the first round. Surge made it to the finals. So, yeah, I think Group B there are 2 very heavy favourites there. It would be a real shocker if Surge and Thieves, one of those teams, didn't make it out. Group C is actually very interesting because the Falcons, after flirting, let's say, with being in Group D after the Ravens drama, they're now in Group C. So Boston and Toronto, right? So Boston came, I mean, they did a great result at the World Championship. They finished 3rd in the end. Didn't quite make it to the finals, but still a commendable job going up with the Neslos that they did and the preparation they did for the tournament. And I imagine their preparation here is going to be solid as well. Toronto, they're expecting to be better with aBeZy in the team instead, but, CleanX on the flex, it's all kind of strange. And then Falcons, I mean, they will want to perform here desperately well in front of the home fans, as it were. And, they've made a change, of course. Priest has gone. TJ's come in. Maybe they get a little bit better with that as well. So I think there's an opportunity there in Group C. Is that the group of death? I don't know. It's interesting. The Challengers team isn't going to be bad either. But Group C has 2 Challengers teams. Maybe Omit have a chance. But unfortunately for them, they've come up against FaZe and Heretics. 2 teams that it's, again, very hard to look past. So I think, to be honest, Group A and Group C have the most intrigue in terms of which teams are going to make it out. Because, realistically, Group B and Group D, it would be difficult to imagine that Heretics and FaZe and Surge and Thieves don't make it out. But, I mean, honestly, who knows? Group A, there's a couple of options maybe. And then Group C, I think it's the same kind of story. Although, I'd really like to see if you put like a really good Challengers team. We don't know how 5Fears and War are going to perform, but they're not considered to be the best, right? That would be Omid. So that's definitely one piece of the puzzle there. But intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. How do you think OpTic get on? G2, Cloud9, 5Fears. The 5Fears team, just to run it through fully, is Exceed, Hixie, Fire, and Capsidal. They brought in Capsidal after the changes that Cloud9 made. And this just one final funny thing to close out with. As Bean says, Team Orchid consists of the first ever triple named team in COD history. Ben, and Ben are making moves in Riyadh. So just to confirm this, of course, unfortunately for Henry, he's no longer going to be playing because they replaced him with Beans. But Beans is Ben McMillan, Mythics is Ben McKenna, and then Bance is Ben Bance, right? So they've got 3 Bens on the same team. And I don't know if that's going to give them like a major power up for the World Cup. But this is the schedule that we believe is going to be the case on the first day. This is literally just day 1. And there are lots of games. Just to keep in mind, it's obviously going to be an early start because it's out there in Saudi Arabia. The GMT time, the UK is currently on British summertime, so we're actually an hour ahead of this. So the first game, OpTic versus 5Fears, is at 1 PM my time. I don't know what I'm going to do for content over those days, but, you know, we'll figure it out. So remember to tweet your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.